Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we look at the softer side of drug enforcement. Families matter to the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. In the face of some daunting challenges to stem the tide of deadly drugs in the U.S., they have not forgotten the children and families that depend on them. Special Agent in Charge, Stephen Bell, joins us from DEA's Omaha Division to talk about the efforts to keep our community safe. Let's meet our guest. Steve, welcome. Let's hear a little bit about what you do and why you're here today.
Peter, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Steve Bell. I am the Special Agent in Charge for the Drug Enforcement Administration Omaha Division. Our division covers a 5-state region: Nebraska, Iowa, North and South Dakota, and Minnesota. I've been with the Drug Enforcement Administration for a little over 20 years, and then prior to that, I was a law enforcement officer in Colorado and Nashville, Tennessee. Total time was 13 years. So all in all, I have a little over 33 years in law enforcement, with the overwhelming majority of my career being in narcotics.
So narcotics is a big word, and we have some funky definitions like, well, is marijuana a narcotic or not? But we're very, very concerned with both fentanyl and the opioid epidemic and meth, which seems to be really holding strong. What is the flow of meth and fentanyl look like to the states that you're managing?
So the number one drug of choice in our region, and specifically Iowa, right now is methamphetamine. And historically, methamphetamine has been extremely predominant in the Midwest. So back in the late 90s, early 2000s, we had all these small toxic methamphetamine labs popping up all over the country. The Midwest was inundated with that. A large part of the manufacturing and the type of manufacturing that was going on and uses anhydrous ammonia, which is very prevalent in the farming community. So that made our region very ripe for these labs. In about 2005, Congress passed the Combat Meth Act and put pseudoephedrine-based products behind the counter. And one of the unintended consequences of that, it pushed all the manufacturing down to Mexico. Well, it pushed the manufacturing down to Mexico, but the appetite still existed in our region. So what we're seeing is Mexican produced methamphetamine that is flooding into our community, and there is no slowdown in sight right now.
And from what I understand, we've had a significant increase in fentanyl flow as well.
Correct. Right now, fentanyl pound for pound is killing more Americans than any other drug. Just last year, there was over 110,000 Americans lost their lives to drug overdose or poisoning, 70% of which involved synthetic opiates such as fentanyl. And also last year, the DEA seized enough potential lethal doses of fentanyl to kill every single American. And the scary part of that, if it's not scary enough, is there's no way to measure what we don't get. And so we obviously know that still both products make it to the street. And unfortunately, there's been a rash of tragic consequences as a result. It's fentanyl, drug poisonings and overdoses is the number one killer for 18 to 45-year-olds here in America. It's the number one killer, and it is a truly tragic situation.
Especially when you're looking at a drug that 10 years ago didn't exist.
Well, fentanyl, illicit fentanyl, legal fentanyl, I guess, has existed for quite a long time in the medical community. But that's not the fentanyl that I'm talking about today. This is produced in Mexico with precursors provided from China, converted to a final product, brought into America, and unfortunately is killing Americans at an astonishing rate. And it's all for the greed of money. And these drug trafficking organizations don't care about you or I or our communities. They want to pump out as much drugs into our communities, get people addicted because it's a larger profit for them.
Well, that's a sad thing. I talked to a few people about the show that we're doing today, and I had asked them what do they think of the DEA? How do they get their image of it? And interestingly enough, almost everybody said television shows.
You know,
Eh,
it's kind of interesting. I think a long time ago, DEA took a lot of pride in being in the shadows, and not everybody knowing who we are, and especially what we did. But as times have changed, we must adapt as well, and we are dealing with a drug crisis that this country has never seen before. And it is time that we get our face out and get the message out because knowledge is power, and I am still amazed today that I talk to people all the time that have no idea that there's a fentanyl problem going on in this country. And it's I kind of equate it to this: we lost over 110,000 people last year. That's roughly 300 people a day. That's the equivalent of two 737 aircrafts crashing in a field every single day, killing everybody on board. Now, there was an airline that lost a door mid-flight, and thankfully nobody suffered any. Nobody died, and there weren't any major injuries. And that has made it in all topics of discussion throughout every media platform for months. So us as a country have no problem talking about the what coulda, woulda, shoulda with an aircraft coming down, when in fact the reality of the drug problem that we have is we have two of those aircrafts crashing into the ground every single day.
we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Special Agent Stephen Bell from the DEA. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Well, because it's the best. And that's true, because I've thought about that. I mean, definitely the fastest. And the biggest thing I hear most people talk about is the stability of it.
MediaCom's network is very reliable. We have a lot of programs in place that can monitor kind of issues that arise. That way we can fix them before they reach the customer.
Trust the pros. Get Extreme Internet starting at $9.99 a month for a year.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out! Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, rude kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Special Agent Stephen Bell from the DEA. As citizens, we need and expect to feel safe in our communities. The DEA really gets that concept, has been successful, but the job is not getting easier. And for many of us, we don't actually know where the DEA, FBI, CIA, where all these things meet or come between, so how effectual they are at doing what we need in our communities. Can you sort of give us a picture of what the DEA is about and how it establishes its own turf on this?
So, the Drug Enforcement Administration was established in 1973. Where we are as an agency is a lot of people don't understand that we have several components that make up the Drug Enforcement Administration. Everybody's really kind of familiar with the agent population, where you have the badge and gun, the vest, and you're kicking in doors and raiding drug houses. So that's what's on TV. That's what everybody sees. But we have a diversion component that handles all the regulatory matters on the pharmaceutical industry and all the millions of registrants that we have in the United States. We also have an intelligence program, a very robust intelligence program that has that basically links the entire intelligence community to the mission of the Drug Enforcement Administration. And then we have our forensic sciences department. We have chemists because new drugs are coming out, it seems like every day. and working to identify what is the next greatest threat that is hitting the United States. And, we have 23 field divisions domestically, and I think we're in like 86 foreign countries. So, I mean, we have a very expansive territory where all these different entities of the DEA work together for the common goal, and that's to, keep Americans safe.
Is the DEA the primary agency charged with the fentanyl trafficking issue?
The DEA is the primary drug law enforcement agency in the federal government. So, yes, the fentanyl, again, referring to illicit fentanyl, would technically fall under the auspices of the DEA, correct? But with that being said, there's other agencies that either share Title 21, which is you're basically drug laws authority, where they too can investigate as well. But really, we are a single purpose mission, all centered around drug enforcement.
Well, now, and I've learned something interesting over the years is that you guys are really spreading out into the community and trying to learn from people that have been affected by, and families that have been affected by overdose. And
Yes.
recently, I was for a little while, I was at something you called a family summit. This seems a little off script from anything I would think of from the DEA, but it seems like it was very well received by the families to be able to get sort of a firsthand and frontline communication about things that are being done that might help prevent other people from suffering from a family member that had an overdose or a problem. What stimulated the idea of moving into the community like that?
Well, I mean, really the change of the amount of Americans that we're losing every single day. Our administrator, Ann Milgram, had this idea where, when we were having, 70 and 80,000 Americans die every single year, that we should listen to what they have to say, because every single one of those citizens has an important message. And I kind of explained at the family summit, having done 3 of these family summits in our division over the past 3 years, it has really kind of changed my perspective, because I've always been about investigate, arrest the bad guy, go on to the next case, and never once really kind of comprehended or looked at everything that we do. There's a family behind it. And so Administrator Milgram instituted what we call the Family Summit, and every headquarters started it in 2021, and then every division in domestically has had 3. So we had one in 2021, 2022, and 2023, and we just had actually we started in 2022 to 2024, and it was what we have learned, and especially me, is these families have an unbelievably tragic message, and their voices are loud, and DEA wants to amplify that message, because not everybody wants to hear from law enforcement saying, drugs are bad and you could die if you take them. Don't listen to us. Listen to the families that are affected. And it is an extremely powerful day. And it has been one of the neatest things of my career, is to bring these families together who share unfortunately, a very common bond, but who take that grief and turn it into action. Man, who wouldn't want to be a part of that?
Well, I want to take a break and then come back and talk about this a little bit more. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Dad, I'm not glitching.
I told you, with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole 2nd season of my show.
So start the 3rd.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove. You told me not to do drugs. You told me not to drink and drive. You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're with Stephen Bell. In addition to all its other duties, the DEA's Omaha division holds a family summit. We talked about that a little bit, and it's making a significant contribution to families impacted by substance use and overdose fatalities, but it's also providing valuable information to the DEA. And you started talking about that, Steve. What is some of the really powerful things that the DEA has been able to grasp to help them do their job?
Well, I mean, first right off, how DEA has benefited is they are an extreme force multiplier for us to get the message out about the dangers and the tragedies and consequences of making bad choices. And there is no greater force multiplier than a family who has been there, done that, and unfortunately is wearing that T-shirt of a loved one that has passed away due to a drug overdose or a poisoning. So when we do community outreach, we bring that up. When you bring a family in to talk about it, it changes everybody's perspective because it makes it real to our audiences. And then what we've seen also with these families is a lot of these families take their grief and they form it into action, whether it's trying to influence or create legislation or do nonprofit coalitions. And we provide a platform where these families, especially across our division that is spread way out, to get together and to strategize on how to move forward, because each family is in a different stage of grief. We had some of the most amazing things. We had people that showed up to our last family summit a couple of weeks ago that were really unsure that they wanted to be in a room with law enforcement and to listen to law enforcement present on what's going on. But we quickly found that once other families got up and started presenting and started talking about what they're doing in their communities and how to make their community safer, their entire perception changed. And really, that's what it's all about. All of us working together towards a common goal, and that's to stop the drug overdose poisoning epidemic that is plaguing this country.
One of the things that I noticed in working with affected families around the state and where they are in grief, I think that what's very powerful is that of all the people that suffer, only a very tiny percentage really put their lives out there to help other people learn to and maybe avoid having that experience themselves, because people grieve differently. And you've mentioned that the people that come to the family day are people that have made a commitment to getting that message out and letting people know what the risks are and the resources they might have to avoid disastrous consequences. And so to be able to get them in the same room and get a lot of them to come together and build on that has a lot of power, because the ones that wouldn't come to a family summit will listen to these groups.
Absolutely.
So it's a very important bridge into the community. But you're right. There are people that are uncomfortable there, but I'll be honest with you. In speaking to several people from the DEA, there's a mutual discomfort, because let's face it, grief is not a comfortable place to be. And I think that's what got me so excited about talking about this family day with you, is that you have to deal with that and the stigma of grief and say, we're going to go right through it to the quick and get something going with these families. And that's pretty impressive.
It's I opened up when I opened up my presentation and welcomed everybody there. I first started off saying that this is my third family summit, first as a SAC, but I am a changed person because for the first time in 33 years, well, it really started a couple years ago. This is really the first time I ever sat and really thought about what we did and how lives are affected. Because all I was really concerned about was arresting the bad guy and going on to the next case. When you sit down and listen to these families and the tragic consequences, and we have everything from a person that had substance use disorder for 12, 15 years, you know overdose and died, to a person whose daughter took a fraction of a pill for a first time and is dead. When you have that broad of a spectrum, you can't help but feel for these families. And it has truly been a remarkable change to see families that have been with us all 3 years from their first summit to their third summit. And you're absolutely right. The transformation and the call to action that our returning families have been, it's actually infectious because they're bringing up all the new families, unfortunately, who are experiencing the grief the other families did, and really getting them a call to action and bringing them on board and figuring out ways to get out in the community to make a difference. It's remarkable.
It is remarkable. We're going to take a short break, and Steve asked you to come back and share some final comments, insights, and inspiration with our audience. See you all after the break.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Dad! Dad, I'm not glitching!
I told you with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable!
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we explored the DEA and elements of its softer side that works with families directly affected by substance use disorder and overdose deaths. Let's see what final insights and inspiration Steve has to share. Steve, talk about that softer side where we're bringing together just a lot of partners to work on a very complicated problem.
Well, I think law enforcement in general is very committed to trying to solve this problem. But what 33 years of being in this industry has taught me is that it is not a law enforcement problem. I wish it was. I wish it was a problem that we could arrest our way out of, and we can't. This is a all hands on deck community problem. And what the Family Summit has really helped is it's helped not only the Drug Enforcement Administration, but all law enforcement get the message out and to get the call to action. This is a problem where people need to hear it not only from law enforcement and these grieving families, but the clergy, the teachers, the doctors, the town halls. This is an all hands on deck type situation. We're talking about 110,000 people that died just last year. And this problem, for it to slow down, I think it starts with education. And that's where our outreach comes in play. And that's where the force multiplier with our families come in play, is to educate people what is going on out there. And I think a second component is a treatment component. We have to Those that are addicted need help, and there has to be some kind of assistance for them to help wean them off of illegal drugs. And then the enforcement component, we continually have to take the fight to the cartels that are pumping this poison into our communities. And I think if all three, us as a community, work on all three, then I think our drug overdose and poisoning numbers will decline, and that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think you were very, very astute in pointing out that we can't arrest our way out of the problem, because when you look at the people at the family summit, the majority of those overdose deaths were not the criminals you're typically arresting.
Correct.
They're the product of those criminal activities that you're trying to stem. And connecting with those families seems like such a powerful tool to understand the sort of mindset of the criminal as well.
It has truly kind of transformed at least the way I think about what we do. Like I said, I was always concerned about, moving on to the next case and never really thinking about the end user or the end product or the devastation that has occurred. And these family summits have absolutely opened my eyes and opened everybody's eyes in our division and in all of DEA to look at why we do what we do and re-energize our agency to really go after those that are peddling this poison on our streets.
And later this summer, just for those watching, we're going to do a show with some of the families that attended the summit to talk about their side of that experience and how that went for them. So that's going to be a fascinating look at both sides of it, because I saw the emotion in your eyes and other people's eyes there. You became respectful, almost like I walked into a church. That now, in the presence of these people that have been so terribly affected, you had this deep, overwhelming emotional respect for them. And that was so great to see.
It is. I would like to say that I can sit here and understand what they're going through, but I've never been through that. And as a father, I am truly blessed that I haven't. But anybody that has attended one of those family summits, it's life-changing. And to listen to what these families are doing from a tragic loss is truly remarkable. And I'm truly honored and humbled to be in front of them.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your story and a little bit about that summit. And we look forward to doing more shows about the summit because of how impactful it really was for everybody involved. And thank you all for watching today. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. I'm MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.